In the early evening of May 5, 1993, the small town of West Memphis, Arkansas was rocked by a horrifying discovery. 3 8-year-old boys, Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, were found dead under the most gruesome of mysterious circumstances. Their bodies, bound and mutilated, were hidden in a muddy creek, a scene so disturbing that it seemed ripped from a nightmare. The brutality of the crime sparked not just local outcry, but a national frenzy, as the quest for justice began to unfold in the most unexpected ways. Caught in the storm were 3 local teenagers, Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelley Jr., who would come to be known as the West Memphis Three. Their arrest and subsequent trials gripped the nation, turning their story into a decades-long battle that questioned not just their guilt, but the very foundation of the American legal system. This video goes into the heart of West Memphis, exploring the chilling details of the crime, the controversial trials, and the relentless fight for truth and justice. From shocking revelations to global movements for their freedom, the saga of the West Memphis Three is a profound reflection of fear, fairness, and the fight against wrongful conviction. This is one of the most compelling and contentious legal dramas of our time. This is their story. West Memphis, Arkansas, a small city located just across the Mississippi River from Memphis, Tennessee, is a community where traditional values run deep. In the early 1990s, this quiet town was a place where everyone knew their neighbors, and the pace of life was slow. But beneath this calm surface, tensions and fears could turn pervasive and deeply troubling. It was in the seemingly peaceful community that a tragedy would unfold, one that would shatter lives and shake the town to its core. On the afternoon of May 5, 1993, 3 young boys, Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, went missing. The boys, all second graders and best friends, were last seen riding their bikes around the neighborhood. The search began as a community effort, with police and volunteers combing the local areas through the night. The urgency was evident. The entire town held its breath, hoping for the safe return of their children. But the discovery the next day would end all hope and start a nightmare. In the early hours of May 6th, in the dense woods known locally as Robin Hood Hills, the unthinkable was discovered. The bodies of Stevie, Michael, and Christopher were found submerged in a shallow creek. The details were gruesome. Bound with their own shoelaces, they bore evidence of severe beatings and mutilations. The brutality of murders shocked the community and the nation. Rumors began to swirl, some suggesting that the nature of the killings pointed to ritualistic elements. The pressure mounted quickly on local law enforcement to solve the case, leading to a frenzied and desperate investigation. As fear and speculation grew, the gaze of suspicion turned towards the town's youth, particularly those who didn't quite fit the mold of the typical West Memphis resident. It wasn't long before 3 teenagers found themselves entangled in a web of allegation and speculation, a web that would prove difficult, if not impossible, to escape. As the small town of West Memphis reeled from the shock of the brutal murders, the pressure on local law enforcement was immense. The community demanded justice for the 3 young boys, and the police were under scrutiny to deliver quick results in a case that had drawn national attention. Without concrete leads or physical evidence linking any suspect to the crime scene, the investigation soon took a controversial turn. The police began to focus on the fringes of West Memphis society, where teenage rebellion often clashed with the town's conservative norms. Damien Echols, known in the community for his interest in Wicca and his Gothic style, quickly became a focal point of the investigation. Alongside him were his close friends, Jason Baldwin, and an acquaintance, Jessie Misskelley Jr., whose cognitive challenges were well known in the community. Under intense police interrogation, and without the presence of legal counsel, Jessie Misskelley, who had an IQ in the range of 72, was subjected to hours of questioning. The police emerged with confessions from Jessie, one that was fraught with inconsistencies and factual errors about the crime itself. The confession, later argued by defense attorneys to have been coerced, played a pivotal role in the case against the three teens. Despite its inconsistencies, it was enough for police to charge Damien, Jessie, and Jason with the murders, launching a trial that would be steeped in controversy and media spectacle. The arrest did little to quell the community's uproar. Instead, they ignited a firestorm of media coverage and public debate. For many, the teenagers' nonconformist personalities and outsider status were seen as enough to declare their guilt. For others, doubt about the fairness of the investigation began to surface, hinting at a miscarriage of justice in the making. As the trials approached, the stage was set for a legal battle that would not only decide the fate of Damien, Jessie, and Jason, but also would challenge the integrity of the American justice system. The question remained, could a fair trial be possible amid such widespread prejudice and fear? As the trials of Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelley Jr. began, the eyes of West Memphis, and indeed the nation, were fixed on the courtroom. Each faced separate trials, a strategy by the prosecution to manage the intense immediate scrutiny and complex dynamics of their cases. The atmosphere was charged with emotion and tension. Inside the courtroom, the stakes were high, with Damien facing the death penalty and life in prison looming for Jason and Jessie. The community awaited justice, but beneath the surface, concerns about fairness and integrity of the trials grew. The prosecution presented a case heavily reliant on the controversial confession made by Jessie Misskelley, despite him recanting shortly after his arrest and refusing to testify against his co-defendants. The confession, fraught with inconsistencies and made without legal counsel, was still used to frame the narrative of a satanic ritual killing. Further complicating the trial was the so-called expert testimony on occult practices. The prosecution brought in specialists whose qualifications and assertions about satanic rituals were later called into question, reflecting the period's satanic panic that influenced public perception and the jury. Evidence presented was circumstantial at best. A knife found in a nearby lake, not directly linked to the crime scene, was touted as a murder weapon. Fibers and candle wax found at the scene were suggested to match items from the teenagers' homes, but these connections were tenuous and heavily debated. After weeks of trial, the jury delivered their verdicts. Damien Echols was sentenced to death, while Jason Baldwin and Jessie Misskelley Jr. were sentenced to life in prison. The verdicts sent shockwaves through the community and the nation. For many, justice seemed to be served, but for others, the trials were nothing short of a travesty, raising alarming questions about the justice system. As the West Memphis Three were led away, the debates outside the courtroom intensified. The fight for justice was far from over, with growing support from around the world rallying for their cause. The battle lines were drawn, not just in West Memphis but across the global stage, as new evidence and new voices joined the fray to challenge the convictions. As Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelley Jr. began their sentences, a small yet determined group of supporters started to question the validity of the convictions. Doubts about the evidence used at the trial and the fairness of the proceedings catalyzed a movement that would eventually gain international attention. The turning point came with the release of Paradise Lost, a documentary that cast a critical eye on the investigation and trials of the West Memphis Three. The film exposed the inconsistencies and potential miscarriages of justice, sparking outrage and compelling new supporters to join the cause. Celebrities like Johnny Depp, Eddie Vedder, and Peter Jackson were moved to the plight of Damien, Jason, and Jessie. They not only contributed financially to the defense fund, but also used their public platforms to advocate for a thorough re-examination of the case. Armed with the support of influential figures, and a growing international community, the defense team pushed for new trials. Advances in DNA technology provided them with the opportunity to challenge the physical evidence that had been used to convict the three teenagers. Meanwhile, legal experts and forensic specialists came forward to debunk many of the prosecution's claims about the nature of the wounds and the supposed links to satanic rituals. This new evidence underscored the flawed assumption and biases that had permeated the original trials. As the new millennium unfolded, the momentum for a retrial seemed unstoppable. Appeals were filed, and the court was compelled to consider the possibility for a miscarriage of justice. The Arkansas Supreme Court eventually ordered a new evidentiary hearing, setting the stage for a critical review of the case. The story of the West Memphis Three is a testament to the power of persistence and public advocacy. As support continued to mount, the path toward justice seemed more attainable. Yet the question remained, would this overwhelming support be enough to overturn the convictions in the face of a resistant judicial system? After nearly 2 decades behind bars, a new chapter unfolded in the lives of Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelley Jr. in 2011. Despite mounting evidence supporting their claims of innocence and a global campaign for their release, the path to freedom came with its own set of complexities. The turning point came with the unusual legal maneuver known as the Alford plea. This plea allows the defendants to maintain their innocence while acknowledging that the prosecution's evidence might be enough to convict them in a retrial. For Damien, Jason, and Jessie, it was a bitter pill to swallow, but one that offered them an immediate return to freedom. On August 19, 2011, in a packed courtroom, the West Memphis Three were given a choice that would change their lives forever: accept the Alford plea and walk free, or continue to fight for complete exoneration, a process that would take years and offer no guarantees. The decision was agonizing. With the weight of their past and future hanging in the balance, Damien, Jason, and Jessie chose freedom. They were sentenced to time served, immediately releasing them from prison, but leaving them with felony convictions on their records, a reminder of the justice system complex and often contradictory nature. Their release was met with a mix of jubilation and controversy. Supporters celebrated the end of their 18-year nightmare, while critics of the plea deal expressed frustration that true justice had not been achieved. The victims' families, divided in their belief about the West Memphis Three's guilt, faced renewed pain and uncertainty. As Damien, Jason, and Jessie stepped back into the world vastly different from the one they left as teenagers, they faced the challenge of rebuilding their lives, tainted by the shadow of their past. Their fight to clear their names continues, a quest to full exoneration and perhaps one day, total absolution. The story of the West Memphis Three remains a poignant reminder of the flaws in our legal system and the resilience required to challenge them. As they move forward, the debate of their innocence and the search for the truth continues, raising profound questions about justice and redemption in America. In the years following the release under the Alford plea, Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelley Jr. have embarked on personal journeys of recovery and advocacy. Their lives, irreversibly altered by nearly 2 decades of wrongful imprisonment, reflect a continuing struggle for normalcy and justice. Damien Echols, once sentenced to death, has become a published author and a vocal advocate for criminal justice reform. His books and art speak volumes about his experience and his resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity. Jason Baldwin has focused on helping others who are wrongfully accused, co-founding a nonprofit organization dedicated to this cause. Jessie Misskelley Jr., perhaps the most private of the three, has largely stayed out of the public eye, focusing on building a quiet and stable life. The legacy of the West Memphis Three extends far beyond their personal stories. Their case has become a pivotal study in the discussion of wrongful convictions, highlighting the dangers of coerced confessions, community bias, and the satanic panic that influenced their trials. It has spurred significant discussions about the need for reforms and how evidence is gathered and presented in court. Educational institutions and legal reform groups have taken up the West Memphis Three case as a cautionary tale. It serves as a stark reminder of what can go wrong in the criminal justice system and the importance of safeguarding against these failures. Advancements in forensic science, particularly in DNA analysis, which played a role in challenging the convictions of Damien, Jason, and Jessie, have also seen significant developments, partly spurred by high-profile cases like theirs. These technologies now offer new hope for those still fighting for justice. As we think about the story of the West Memphis Three, we are reminded of the fragility of justice and the strength of human spirit. Their fight for exoneration continues, supported by the community that has grown from local advocates to a global network. Their story is not just a tale of injustice and survival, but a call to action to ensure that what happened to them does not happen to another. On April 18, 2024, the Arkansas Supreme Court ruled that Damien Echols may have evidence in this historic case retested using advanced DNA technology. This is a step that may further undermine convictions based entirely on circumstantial evidence. The West Memphis Three story is a stark reminder of the fallibility of our justice system, a system where innocence is challenged and justice can sometimes be a shadow, elusive and obscured by human error and bias. For 18 years, Damien, Jason, and Jessie endured a reality that is unimaginable to most of us, fighting against a verdict that seemed a foregone conclusion from the start. Yet, out of their ordeal has blossomed legislative changes, shifts in forensic and legal protocols, and a renewed commitment to the protection of the innocent. Their case has become a beacon for those advocating against wrongful convictions and for those who seek to refine our legal processes. As this video reflects on the past, present, and future implications of their story, lest we forget the price paid by those who have lived it. May their legacy be a guiding light for justice, not just in West Memphis, but around the world. Thank you for watching. Please feel free to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to Legends and Legacy channels for further videos, and watch over 40 videos currently on the channel. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time.